This is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Clayton Jackson with the county's Community Information Division. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Volusia Today is made possible by our sponsors, the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. Today, I'm joined by Dave Hunt. Dave is one of our marketing specialists. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Clayton. How's it going?
I am doing wonderful. The sun is out. It's a weekend. Just ready for the weekend start. It's been beautiful weather. And how was your 4th of July?
It was good. A lot of family time, had some time off. I came into work Monday, so it was a little weird having it on Tuesday. But like you said, we're here at Friday, and that's good. And we had some great news when we came into the office on July 5th. It's historically a big beach cleanup day. A lot of the organizations and groups within our community come out to the beach and help clean up and keep Volusia beautiful, and the turnout was amazing. They got it cleaned up beautiful. So we just want to give a big shout out to all those people who went out there on July 5th and helped clean up our beach. It's really what it's all about. It's about cleaning up our community and keeping it beautiful, and us all doing our part.
And we also want to give a shout out to our residents and our visitors. Here, there were very few, if any, incidents of all of people shooting off fireworks on the beach.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's well, thank you for that as well. The cleanup and the refraining from fireworks on the beach. It just really shows what Volusia County is about. You know, getting together and we're all focused on the same thing, and it's having the most beautiful place to live, work, and play.
Yep. So speaking of 4th of July, we're watching the famous Nathan's hot dog eating competition on July 4th, and my father-in-law asked me how many hot dogs I think I could eat. I said I probably could eat 5 in 10 minutes. He said no way. So actually, tomorrow I'm going to meet that challenge at the house. So Dave, do you think you could do 5 hot dogs in 10 minutes?
Well, so we actually, I think if you look back in the Volusia Today episodes, we have a video episode where I think somebody brought hot dogs in the studio. You should actually brought them in today, and we could have seen what you had.
I don't think our viewers want to see that. So, well, with us today is our Growth and Resource Management Director, Clay Ervin. Good morning, Clay.
Good morning, Clayton. Good morning, David. How are y'all doing today?
So, and just for the listeners out there, well, I'm Clayton, and you can probably differentiate our voices by my Kentucky Southern accent draw, and Clay Ervin. So, just want to set the record straight on that. So, Clay, I'm going to pose the same question to you. 5 hot dogs in 10 minutes. Do you think you could do that?
In a heartbeat.
Let's see. All right. So, Randy, that's my father-in-law. I'm going to meet your challenge tomorrow, and we'll follow up with that on the next segment if I'm able to meet that. So, Clay, a lot of big things have been happening in the Growth and Resource Management Department. And before we get to some of our questions, do you just want to give our listeners an overview of what your department is and what it does?
Great. Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you, Clayton. Growth and Resource Management is a really diverse group of people. We've got the standard idea of what you would think from planning, zoning, building. We also have environmental management, which oversees not just permitting, but also includes the Marine Science Center, the Lyona Environmental Center, our water quality sampling group. We also do Explore Volusia. We are also part of Green Volusia, so we're out there working on our resiliency plan and also looking at what we can do to help educate the folks on how to be better stewards of the land.
Is that a standard setup? So we got building with environmental. Is that and what is that? Why are those kind of paired? Why are those all underneath one umbrella?
Yeah, if you look county to county, it depends. But for the most part, you're going to see planning, building, zoning, and some sort of environmental involved because you need to have that balance. Obviously, we need to make sure that we're protecting natural resources and ensuring that as we develop on the land, that it's done so in a manner that minimizes any impact. And so therefore, you also need to be cognizant of people's private property rights. And so that's where we're able to provide that balance through this department.
Is that cities too? Do cities kind of have that same setup? Or how does that, what's the difference between city and county?
Well, I used to be the planning director over at Ormond Beach and at Port Orange. And I would say that the biggest difference is this. The majority of the lands within the cities are targeted for development. They're already in place. And so what you see is that the amount of agricultural and open space area is not as much of an issue as we face in Volusia County. Volusia County, as we were talking about before the show, in 1990, we were primarily a rural county. Over the last 30 plus years, we've started transitioning into a more urbanized and suburban county. And so that's created a lot of interesting and different challenges. As we were talking about, the amount of lands that are actually within the cities has more than doubled since 1990. And that makes sense because they have utilities, they have all the facilities to be able to serve higher density residential and commercial needs. Now we're just working on how we can maintain that balance. And that's part of what the topic we're going to be discussing today about.
All right, and so your Planning and Development Division just wrapped up its 5th and final planning workshop, I should say, this Wednesday. Tell us a little bit, what was the purpose of those workshops?
Sure. Before we get into it, I got to give credit where credit's due. Carol McFarland, who oversees our planning division, and Trish Smith, who oversees the planning function, they did a great job of organizing their crew, and they've got some fantastic planners. Stephen Shams, Kristen Ray, Kelly Tucker, Rebecca Cottle, and we also stole Aubrey Austin from over in emergency management so that we could have a much more comprehensive workshop. They did a great job. It was a great open forum, not really a presentation, and that was really the key thing. Why were we doing it? The state of Florida mandates that every city and every county has a comprehensive plan. Then every 7 years, you're supposed to do what they call an evaluation appraisal report, which is, did we do what we said we were going to do? If we didn't, why? Should we keep on trying, etc. So we took it beyond just a technical review. We wanted to make sure that we were able to reach out to the public to get their feedback. And that was the real goal, was mainly for our planners to listen to the public to understand what their concerns about what's happening in unincorporated Volusia County, as well as the 16 cities that make up our total county. Also, it was a great way to educate the public. Most folks are really busy just keeping a roof over their head, trying to keep food on the table. So they don't have a lot of time to spend worrying about what the comp plan, what the zoning designation, what regulations are in place. This gave us an ability to help folks understand our regulatory process, what we go through, and how we as a county work from beginning to end before a permit is issued or land is acquired for conservation. Lastly, it's important that our planners get out into the community. It's one thing to sit at your desk and look at all the great GIS information, geographic information systems that we have, but it's another thing to drive the roads, see the buildings, and talk to the people. And that is what we were able to do. We had about 30 people on average attend these settings. We also did a impromptu 6th workshop at the first meeting in June at the county council so that we could get folks who were there for the meeting to kind of give us some feedback. So we were really happy with the information we got.
Clay, you are masterful in your delivery and your knowledge. I sit here and I'm nodding my head and I'm thinking like, wait, what's a comprehensive plan? What's included in a comprehensive
All
plan?
Right. Thank you, Dave. I'm sorry. That's the planner in me. Well, I'm not using acronyms, but we do speak in $3 words. State of Florida in 1985 said, cities and counties, thou shalt plan. And you'll have future land use, you'll have a traffic element, you'll have a housing element, you'll have a conservation element, coastal management if it's applicable, you'll also have an intergovernmental coordination element, and then you'll have elements on water, sewer, etc. This was done in 1985 to make sure that cities were planning for their future, making sure that they had a fiscally sound method of addressing impacts from growth, and more importantly, being able to do that balance I was talking about, making sure that if there are lands that we need to conserve, are you doing the proper planning to protect those lands? And so that was all put in place. Volusia County and the 16 cities had to have their comprehensive plans adopted by 1990. That's kind of our keystone date that we utilize, because that helps us set when the comprehensive plan was adopted and implemented. And prior to that, we were really reliant on primarily our zoning standards and our subdivision regulations. So therefore, this gives us a much more comprehensive look.
Now, what if somebody was not able to attend one of those workshops and they may want to learn more about it, or they want to provide their input? Is it too late, or
Not at all, but we are getting close to the deadline. We are going to have this in front of our April meeting of our Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission. That's our designated local planning agency. They're the one that make recommendations to the county council for changes to the comprehensive plan. So if you want to provide us comments, if you want to ask questions, if you want more information, I strongly recommend contacting our planning division. The email address is planning, planning, @volusia.org, or you can call us at 386-736-5959. And any of those people that I talked about earlier will be glad to talk to you and find out what your concerns are, what your recommendations are. Our goal is to take all of the comments we heard, wrap them into the report, provide that to the Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission and ultimately the County Council in October. The way the process works in the state of Florida, because this is going to be not only a report, but will also result in future changes to the comprehensive plan. We go through our Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission. They review it. It's a public hearing. Those comments are then sent to the County Council in October. They take action. We send it up to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, who goes through and reviews it for consistency with Florida statutes, specifically the Florida Community Planning Act.
And you might be listening and thinking, provide my comments. But at the end of the day, we work for the people. We can all agree here that we work for the people.
Yes.
And I don't know if some people think their comments don't matter. They matter. We listen to everything that people have to say, and it really does impact and help shape the programs that we're working on. It's
100%.
We talk about all the time in county, like, come, we work for the people, come and say what you have to say, and it's always taken into consideration. It's always heard, and it can help shape our community moving forward. So I definitely encourage people to reach out.
Thank you. Great point.
Yes, sir.
And for some of our residents that did suffer property damage as a result of either Hurricane Ian or Hurricane Nicole, I know for a while that there's some fees and application fees that have been waived, to ease some of the financial hardships that they've experienced. Are those fees still waived right now?
Oh, definitely. Our county council has been ahead of the curve on all of this. If you go back to all of the hurricanes, I've been with the county since 2016, so we had Matthew and Irma. They realized that waiving building permit fees for storm-related damage, and also when we had the tornadoes that went through the DeLand area, there was a waiver of building fees. So they realized the importance of doing that. Excuse me. We're doing such a good job with addressing that the state basically has just passed a law now that all cities and counties have to follow kind of the model we put in place, where building permit fees are waived for those that are storm-related damage. They are expedited. In other words, they're put on the top of the pile to address. And, adding into that, there's certain other conditions. Our county council was very forward-thinking, realizing people wanted to get into their house right away, but it may not be safe. So let them have an RV or a trailer in their front yard while that building is being restored, so that way they at least got a little bit of sanity in their otherwise crazy world. And so now that's part of that state law change as well.
We recently did an employee spotlight with you where we came up in your office unannounced and had a camera in your face, and we asked what your favorite part of the job was, and you said it, a problem solver. And when you talk about some of these problems, these are unprecedented things that have taken place, right? Can you talk a little bit about when something pops up that's just, obviously we get hurricanes and that kind of stuff happens, and we deal with that, but can you talk about when these things happen and how does your thought process work? How does the team come together, and what's the main focus during all that?
Well, you've got to think about what the end solution is, and that's where a lot of our folks on the second floor over at the Thomas C. Kelly Administrative Building think. We see the problem. What are the solutions? Are there any kind of roadblocks? How do we get around those roadblocks? How do we make sure that the intent of why that roadblock is there is still protected? We're going through this right now on the coast. When the hurricanes came in and did the severe damage, unprecedented damage, there was a lot of concern about whether or not we were going to allow construction to continue past the May 1st sea turtle nesting season date. Through our coordination and through the help of our council and our elected officials in Tallahassee, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Volusia County, and the coastal cities all have put together a plan that will allow us to continue to do so. And that was critical because people were losing property. And it may not have moved as quickly as some of the folks had wanted, may not have moved as quickly as we wanted, but at least we got there. And so it's, again, we've put in place, as I was saying, how do we, if there's a roadblock, how do we amend it? How do we modify it so that we can still have the intent of what it's being protected, but still proceed forward?
Wonderful information. Well, with that, we're going to take our first break. Stay with us, and we'll be more with Clay Ervin.
Subscribe to the Volusia County YouTube channel.
And hit the bell icon to know what's happening in your hometown.
There are so many great places to explore.
And things to learn.
With over 1,000 videos available right now, the channel offers something for everyone.
Let's go!
Did you know we have countless features showcasing history, nature, wildlife, and recreation? Subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Or that we live stream important county meetings and workshops where leaders make decisions that can impact our everyday lives. Did you subscribe yet?
Or that we record our weekly radio show, Volusia Today, where we interview staff from the different divisions and departments across our great county, and they discuss the nitty-gritty of their field and expertise.
Go ahead, subscribe.
But that's not it. There's more. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and fully explore.
Score!
We're back. I'm David Hunt along with Clayton Jackson, and you're listening to Volusia Today, a public information program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Clay, we just got back. We were talking about the comprehensive plans, the hurricane impacts, how basically the state hasn't enacted laws off of our actions during all that. That's amazing stuff. Your department also handles permitting. Let's talk a little about permitting. Mm-hmm. Let's start at, what is your advice on permitting? Let's say you're looking at a project at your house and you're like, I don't know, I'm putting it in a mailbox. Do I need a permit? What would be your advice to anybody who's who questions if they need a permit or not?
We do get into minutia, but luckily mailboxes are not necessarily part of it. One of the things that you're going to see is that our first and foremost recommendation is make sure you get a good licensed contractor. A good licensed contractor will be upfront about what the permits they can pull for you, who they use as their subs, those types of things. They're going to be open for you to ask them questions about other projects they've done. I think anyone who's on the coast needs to make sure that their contract has experience in permitting things in the coastal construction control line and working with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. It is greatly improved, and it's been streamlined for the hurricane response, but it still is a permitting process. And as such, there's going to be certain requirements that have to be provided in order for all the local governments and federal and state governments to allow for things to proceed. So get someone with experience. If you have any questions about someone's licensing, contact us at the building department in Volusia County. We'll be able to verify whether or not they have permitting or licensing through us. You can also go on the State of Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. They have a lot of information about the different contractors that are available. If you do have any problems, we do have enforcement of those contractors who may not necessarily be living up to what they're supposed to be doing, or may not have necessarily delivered to you what they said they would. In the end, permitting is a consumer protection action. We're trying to make sure that the public knows that if they've got a permit, that the improvements they're doing are going to meet the Florida Building Code, and that their structure will be, at the minimum, meeting those standards. There's a great picture of Mexico Beach up in the Panhandle after Hurricane Michael came through. And there's a home that was built above code. The codes that they were utilizing there are the codes that we implement here. And if you look around, some of the older structures that were constructed to not that code are gone, but this one home is standing. And so that's where we, from our building perspective, take the job very seriously. I was living in Fort Lauderdale when Hurricane Andrew came through, and I can tell you the devastation down there was why we have the Florida Building Code. And so we'll be glad to help out. If anyone has any questions, just please contact our building division. We'll be glad to help out.
On the building, how often do you update that, and what are you looking at? You made the example of the Mexico Beach House. Is that like in a specific example when you look 20 years down the road, like this worked obviously, so we need to implement something to this level, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, the Florida Building Code was actually a response to the insurance industry, because after Andrew came through, there was devastating impacts to the insurance agencies and the insurance corporations. So they, working with the Florida Home Builders Association, came up and utilized what is available through the International Code Committee, Council, some minimum standards that have to be applied statewide. And so it's a state law. It's in Florida statutes. We do not have the capability of putting local changes unless it's approved by the state. So the code that you see in Jacksonville is the code you're going to see down in Key West, that you're going to see in Pensacola.
Yep. So speaking of codes, what about code violations? What if somebody on my street, I don't think that their property is living up to what it should be? What should I do?
Well, first and foremost, this is the biggest problem that we see. Make sure you know where you live. I mean, and I don't mean to say that flippantly, it's just that folks do get confused whether or not they're living in the unincorporated area or if they're within a municipal area. So once you know that whether you're in the cities or the counties will dictate who you contact. If you live in the unincorporated county area, we are the agency you would contact for code enforcement. All of the cities and all the counties in the state of Florida were told probably about 2 years ago now, there were some changes that preempted our ability to take anonymous complaints. Volusia County used to take anonymous complaints. Unfortunately, we can't do that anymore. So now if you do have something going on in your neighborhood, an RV, a boat parked out all the time on the street or in the front yard, someone not maintaining their property, those types of things, we can respond. We have a response within 24 hours, but unfortunately you will need to leave your name and address. And what our process can be very frustrating to the public because we have to give the property owner time to come into compliance. If they don't, then we take them to our code enforcement board and a fine can be levied against them. For first-time offenders, it can go up to $250 a day that the offense is in place. For repeat offenders, the process is greatly reduced and it can go up to $500 per day. Again, we're available to answer any questions that the public have about that, and we'll be glad to. If homeowners associations, we've done presentations to homeowners associations, the Board of Realtors, to go over some common code violations and how we address them.
And I don't know if this is the right advice or not, but sometimes things such as that, if your neighbor has something that might be a problem with you personally, maybe sometimes a conversation is a good place to start.
100%. It's much. You don't want us to get involved because that's when it becomes bureaucratic, official. We would like to be able to believe that neighbors can work with neighbors. We're there in case they can't.
I hear you all the time in council when something comes up and maybe a developer's trying to do a neighbor. Have you talked with the neighbors? Have you had a meeting with the neighbors? And that can go a long way, right? Is that historically that can go a long way in the whole process, correct?
Yeah, I've worked in private sector and I've worked in public sector. Anytime that you can go out and before you get into that official public hearing in front of whatever board, if you can go out and just talk with people who live in that neighborhood, in that area about what their concerns are going to be, I would say a majority of the time you can address it. There's some things that you're not going to be able to solve. There's folks that just don't want to see development occur anywhere near them. That's okay. That's their perspective. We as a local government have to respect property rights, and it's mandated by the state. Believe it or not, we have to have in our comprehensive plan a private property rights element, which ensures that we are not doing anything that's going to be infringing on those. So again, it gets back to that balance idea.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with that, we're going to take our last commercial break. Stay with us for more Volusia Today.
Subscribe to the Volusia County YouTube channel.
And hit the bell icon icon to know what's happening in your hometown.
There are so many great places to explore.
And things to learn.
With over 1,000 videos available right now, the channel offers something for everyone.
Let's go!
Did you know we have countless features showcasing history, nature, wildlife, and recreation? Subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Or that we live stream important county meetings and workshops where leaders make decisions that can impact our everyday lives. Did you subscribe yet?
Or that we record our weekly radio show, Volusia Today, where we interview staff from the different divisions and departments across our great county, and they discuss the nitty-gritty of their field and expertise.
Go ahead, subscribe.
But that's not it. There's more. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and fully explore.
Score!
We're back with Volusia Today. I'm Clayton Jackson. So Clay Ervin, I got to say Clay Ervin because I'm Clayton. So your department has a number of advisory boards. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. We need volunteers. We have a code enforcement board where there's a vacancy available for that right now. And we have the construction licensing contractor appeal board. We need an electrician. So any electrician who's bored one day out of the month and you want to come and join us, please volunteer. We also have the Environmental Natural Resource Advisory Committee. We have a position open there. That's specific to a council member, and I can't remember which person made the appointment, so I need to get more information. And lastly, our Planning and Land Development Regulation Commission is missing a member from District 4. That's Council Member Kent's area. So if you live in the North Daytona, Holly Hill, Ormond Beach area in the unincorporated county, please contact Council Member Kent, as well as Carissa Green, who's our Deputy County Clerk, and we'd be glad to talk with y'all about being able to help us out.
Wonderful information. And just for our listeners out there, anybody, any Volusia County resident who is interested in being a part of government, making an impact, please visit our website of www.volusia.org. There are a number of advisory boards that that will meet your specific interests, your needs, how to get involved with. Again, we value, and our county council, we greatly value citizen input, and we want you to be a part of that. With that, we're going to call today's show a wrap. Thank you for listening to Volusia Today, and have a wonderful weekend.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.